Hello and howdy. My name is CC Hawkley.
What's up, guys? I'm Scott. Happy to be back.
Scott McDonald in the house, and this is the House of Front Range Hockey. And this is episode number 5. Can still count it on one hand, at least for
There it
one more
is.
episode. So
Next week that'll change, though.
it will.
God, we made it, buddy. We're at the 5 mark.
Yeah,
That's pretty big.
And considering we had to start over a little bit, we keep chugging along. We just keep plugging along. So
that's right.
So welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for making us. Well, thanks for listening to us. Just thanks for making us a part of your day. That's what I meant to say. But anyway, once again, that's Scott. I'm Cece. Welcome to the show. And we don't have a whole lot of Avalanche to talk about because they haven't really played. Well, they haven't played since we last got on the air here.
When we recorded, yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of broke that news on the air last time that they canceled, they shut it down for a week. So here we are.
Yeah. So the games against the St. Louis Blues, there was a couple of them. Of course, that's kind of how the NHL's doing things these days. And then there's a couple games against the Arizona Coyotes that were also canceled as well because, there's a number of players in COVID-19 protocol. So it's just a matter of, waiting and seeing because the Avalanche do have the Vegas Golden Knights coming up in the next week. And Vegas, they had a player test positive. I mean, it was all over social media that, one of the Anaheim Ducks, that's who Vegas played when their COVID-19 protocols, went into effect. One of their players came down with a positive COVID-19 test. That was Thomas Nosek. And first player this season to be pulled during a game because of a COVID-19 test, the league said on Wednesday. And by the way, before we get any further, this is for Friday, February 12th, 2021, just to give you kind of a date stamp there and to see, here we are just talking.
Yeah.
The Avalanche and yeah. February 12th, 2021, the Friday before Valentine's Day weekend. Let's get back to Vegas, Anaheim, COVID test. Now Vegas is kind of on, high alert in regards to, their COVID testing. And well, like I said, with Nosek's positive test, you have a game scheduled for Sunday at Vegas. You have another game scheduled for Tuesday at Vegas. And then on the 20th, you've got the Outdoor Classic or the Bridgestone NHL Outdoor Classic, if we're going to use sponsorships and everything here. But you've got that over at Lake Tahoe, which is now also in jeopardy. I mean, this is just a huge cluster, Scott. Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, I'm not pumped about it because I was really excited because I was one of the few media members who was going to be granted access to that Tahoe game, and really glad I haven't bought a ticket yet because I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen and was going to pull the trigger last week on that, but then of course everything shut down. I was like, okay, well maybe I'll hold off for a bit, and that was kind of Dater's recommendation as well. It's like I would hate to. You buy a non-refundable ticket or something and then, the game gets canceled and what are you going to do? So yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's interesting that they, going back to Vegas, who's obviously the Avs competition for the next 3 games, pulled a player in the middle of a contest. So you have to think what we talked about last podcast with the whole Minnesota thing. And, we kind of predicted later after we recorded that the news broke that, there was some positive tests for the Avs and they're going to shut it down too. You just gotta think just the way this thing transmits. If the guy got pulled mid-game, he's already been, exposed to his teammates without a mask, whether it's in the locker room or, on the ice or on the bench. And, we'll see what happens in the next, few days. Is I'm sure more positive tests will start rolling in, and, who knows, Vegas might have to shut it down just like the Avs did and just like the Wild did for a week or so, because I'm sure they'll have more than just Nosek getting the positive, and we'll see what that means for the Tahoe game, because it's a big spectacle. Obviously it's already been built and everything, and the space has been rented out on the golf course there in Tahoe. And what do they do? I mean, if the Avs are healthy, do you reschedule that game with a different team to play the Avalanche, or do you cancel it altogether? Who knows what's going to happen? So it's a waiting game for now, and we'll see what the NHL wants to do. But I have a hard time believing that they're going to cancel this game altogether, because it's it's a big TV advertising thing, and 3 out of the 4 teams are healthy. It's like, well, shit, looks like Phoenix or Arizona is playing the Avs or something, or they'll pull St. Louis in. I'm sure they'll probably reschedule it, but we'll see what happens. I'm eagerly waiting to click purchase on my ticket, waiting in the basket on Google Flights there.
Yeah, and maybe Tomas Nosek. I completely butchered his name and Americanized it when I first said it because I
don't know if I said it right. Don't sell yourself short. I just guessed. I've heard it both ways. He's whatever.
From the Czech Republic. I think you're being a little more like on the nose with the pronunciation. Yeah. Like, it's not Americanized. So right. Good on you. I just, like I said, I rushed through it and I'm like, all right, Tomas Nosek. So there you go. Yeah. But yeah, he could throw a wrench in tomato, sure. Thomas Thomas.
Nosek, whatever.
Nosek, whatever. But yeah, if Nosek, he could very well his positive test, and not to put the blame on him or anything, but it's like this could lead to obviously a hang up in regards to playing this game at Lake Tahoe. Maybe, the NHL calls an audible and they throw another team in there or something. But, it's the fact that, like, for example, to go to the AHL before their season started at the end of January, the last Saturday in January, I believe it was the 29th, you had the San Jose Barracuda and the Henderson Silver Knights. They were playing a game. They were, going through the motions. Second period ended. And then you come to find out the game ended because they had to suspend play because right. The teams were set to come out for the third. They headed back to their locker rooms because of COVID-19 protocols. There was a positive COVID-19 test and it's just the world that we live in right now. It's like, this is going to keep happening. And the NHL, they're, taking the boards out like we talked about last episode. They're taking the plexiglass out from behind the bench to increase airflow and things like that. And, there's only so many things that you can do and preventative measures that you can take aside from rapid testing day of that, and even then it's not as accurate as a test like a nasal swab test that, Anyway, so, you got something? Go ahead, man.
No, I was going to say, so they actually just minutes before recording this today, the NHL and the NHLPA just released some new standards of their COVID testing, and they're getting a little more intense. They're cracking down on it. So, for one, I guess they're now taking the glass out from behind the penalty boxes as well as the team benches, and that's the most minimal thing. So I'll start small, but all players and staff are now required to stay at home unless they're going to the rink to play a game or practice or need to go to the hospital or whatever. Or just it falls under the guise of essential duties or something. So I don't know if that means grocery stores or if they send someone to get groceries for them. Who knows? Now they're doing rapid testing on game days now for every team, which is good. Yeah. All team meetings are now virtual. Masks, they have to I think the teams now have to issue every player and staff member a KN95 mask, which I think are top of the line, the Rolls Royce of masks as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to start trying to regularly test or at least allow access to family members now of players and people in close contact with the players to hopefully avoid that exposure at home or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think they're realizing now it's that we're a month into the season, and now it seems like every day I'm getting a notification that a game is postponed or canceled or stuff like this that's happening to the Wild or the Avalanche, and now Vegas. I think they're starting to realize that it's going to be a tough finish to the season, and it only just started. It's not going to be the finish, and obviously they want to play this whole thing out. They want to finish the season, but it's getting tough. And the Avs missed 7 games or something, and it's how do you reschedule those? How do you? If we talked about it last episode, it's I'm not envious in the slightest bit of the scheduling department in the NHL that's constantly having to rework it and try to fit as many games in as possible. And it might get to the point where these players are playing every damn day, just to make up some lost ground. But we'll see. It's a tough situation, and it's ever changing. We talk about it all the time, and there's really nothing you can do. It's just it's a sticky situation all around.
Yeah, and you would think that, there's something to be said about, people's free will and sovereignty to go out and to do things and to be responsible within reason. But honestly, you've got younger guys, of course, and you've got guys in their early 20s and mid 20s that still, like to probably go out and, have a good time as best as they can in a global pandemic. And so that's a thing. So you would think that the NHL would have been proactive in that. And I'm not pointing the finger. Well, maybe I should point the finger a little bit and say, hey, you guys run a professional sports league and you need to protect your players and basically be the power above them that says, listen, we are in a global pandemic. We don't want your guys' health jeopardized. So to consult with medical experts rather, and to discuss this and to get these protocols and measures in place before the season starts, instead of having to adjust on the fly. I mean, easy for me to say, sitting here in this chair behind this microphone,
Right.
But, it's like the NFL, they had a few instances. I mean, for God's sake, the Denver Broncos had to start a friggin' wide receiver at quarterback for one game because of the fact that their whole quarterback room was compromised. And the NFL had to navigate that. They had to reschedule games, and they only had, a 16-game season for these clubs. But the NHL, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, they're going to burn these players out. They're going to burn these teams out unless they go to like a points percentage based on games played, because there is no way in hell that some of these clubs with as many games that are being canceled are not going to be able to recover and play all these games by a certain stop date, because of the fact that, it's like I said, it's going to burn the players out. It's just going to run them until the wheels fall off. It's going to run them ragged. So that's my hope, is that they go to a points-based percentage, kind of, stagger it that way and, go from there.
That's something I didn't even think about at all. That's actually a good point. I mean, the AHL has been doing it. A lot of other leagues do that, the point percentage thing, because in the AHL, at least, certain divisions and conferences, they play a different amount of games just because of, travel and things like that. So they've always done a point percentage system. I didn't even think about that. That would be a pretty easy way out for the NHL, because like to your point, they're just going to burn each other out and like burn their players out. And like, we get it. That's your product that you're putting on the ice, and that's what you're making money that way. And I guess mostly for the NHL, the way they're making money now is all TV deals. So I think for that reason, they're trying to play as many games as possible, which again makes sense. They've lost a lot of money. Everyone's lost a lot of money, and they have to do what they have to do. But at the end of the day, it's like, you can't force these players to play, 30 games in like 35 days as we like head down the stretch heading into the playoffs and expect to ice a good product. It's just it's not realistic. And I think something they'll probably certainly look into, and that's something I didn't think about at all. It's like, I think points percentage is an easy way out of this scheduling conflict that they're, inevitably going to face and are currently facing.
Yeah. But like you said, there's money tied up, there's ad revenue, there's, cash is king. So, you got to make that coin, got to make that money. And I get that too. But let's focus on the players again. I know we were talking a little bit before we started the show about which players are going to be eligible to come back from COVID-19 protocols. I know you mentioned here, there we go. McKinnon, Belmar. Sorry, Mayor. It is such a mind trick for me when I'm looking at a word after hearing it for so long, and then I look at a name and it's like
we all struggle with the names. Yeah, it's right. Almost like every episode one of us is like fucking pronouncing it wrong. So it's whatever. Like, who cares?
Dude, I previewed 23 teams over 10 episodes for the Calder Farmstead podcast. You want to talk about butchering names? Like, we have to go through every outline and listen for clips and stuff for these pronunciations. It's brutal, but I digress. It's tough. It's brutal with some of these names because everybody's coming from somewhere different. So the dialect is different. The pronunciations are different. The accents, Anyway,
we're doing our best.
We are. Yes, we are. So McKinnon, Belmar, and Tays are all expected to be back on the ice when practice resumes. So that's what you told me earlier today. And you got something else, it looks like.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's
okay.
It's pretty incredible. Like, what I was going to say is Belmar.
Right.
I like tweeted about this earlier, but it's like, Jesus Christ, like this dude's he's a superhuman. Like, I mean, everyone saw the injury. Everyone saw, the way the Minnesota player slid into his knee, and knees are certainly not supposed to bend that direction. Just that's not how it goes. And like we all kind of thought, just the fact that he's like, nope, he wasn't putting any pressure on it or anything. And I was like, man, like I had a bunch of people like tweeting me back, and it was like, I've torn both my ACLs or whatever, and like that I thought for sure that was a torn ACL or like whatever. Like I had 3 knee surgeries, and like I thought for sure he was like out for like a year and a half, like no doubt about it. And the fact that he's like skating, I think he skated today at the Avs first practice, is pretty damn incredible. So I mean, thankfully it wasn't as bad as a lot of us thought. And same with McKinnon and Taves. They were initially, week to week or whatever it was. And now, they're miraculously back. And we kind of touched on that last time. It's like, a week-long break. It's not the worst thing for the Avs, especially. Like there's always a silver lining to these situations, I guess. And, the Avs they're decimated. There was quite a bit of injuries to some very, very big players, and they were surviving, but you can't sustain that for weeks to weeks, as Bednar put it last week before, the shutdown happened. So, the fact you're getting McKinnon back, Belmar's a huge fourth line player, and Devon Taves, your top line defenseman, we're all back on the ice today and healthy. They effectively only missed, I guess, like 1 or 2 games each or whatever it was. So could have been a lot worse. They could have been without those guys for like 10 games, but that's awesome, especially for Belmar. I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, just the fact that, like you knees aren't supposed to bend that way. It's kind of, you have to say it with a chuckle because it's like, all right, yeah, they aren't, and it's gruesome, and it's like you have to take it with a grain of salt because that, but it's like, good God, like, yeah, it's amazing that he was skating at all, even like putting pressure on his legs at all. It's just like, my goodness. So yeah, it's crazy that especially him is coming back, but to have McKinnon back is huge, of course. To have Taves back is huge. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of getting those guys back and seeing if they'll play against Vegas this week. It's like it takes 2 to tango, and the Avalanche are recovering and have recovered. And now their opponent, Vegas, may not be recovered in time. So we'll see about that. But yeah, anyway, we'll get to more Avs stuff when we actually have games to talk about. Unfortunately, like we said, it's just a matter of them not playing this past week since we last recorded. So let's talk about the Colorado Eagles. So Super Bowl Sunday, very celebratory, normally a joyous occasion, but man, it was a huge paradigm shift for the Colorado Eagles organization in regards to their foundation, in regards to where they came from and how they were founded. You had Chris Stewart, former president and GM Chris Stewart, that coached the team for a number of seasons through the CHL and the ECHL years. He retired. He retired on Friday, and that during that Super Bowl weekend on the 5th. He retired on the 5th there, and then you get the news on Sunday that the Eagles founder and Montreal Canadiens legend, 6-time Stanley Cup champion Ralph Backstrom, the man who created the Eagles, passed away on Sunday. So it's like you have these two, earth-shaking events, but they've kind of, Backstrom wasn't involved with the team, since 2007, and Stewart, has kind of taken a step back, especially with the Eagles being involved more with the Avalanche and Craig Billington coming in as general manager of the Eagles and things like that. But this is an end of it's a bit of a symbolic end of an era, as it were.
Yeah, no, it really is. And like that, it's a tough week for the Eagles organization. Obviously, you lose your founder, and like Ralph I've had the opportunity to meet him a few times, and he's just an incredibly nice guy, like incredibly humble. Like the fact that like it was a 5-time Stanley Cup champion, something like that, should be in the Hall of Fame. It's not, but he should be, and probably will be pretty soon here. Sure. He loved the game, and he loved the Eagles, like, more than anything. And the fact that he was just living in humble Windsor, Colorado, when, It's like you won. So you played with, Rocket Richard and Belvo and like those guys. It's incredible. Like the guy's a legend. So that's, I mean, obviously a tough loss, but like you said, like he hasn't been a part of the organization since 07, but he would still, visit the rink every once in a while and catch a game or two. And it's a tough loss no matter which way you dice it. Like you can kind of try to make yourself feel better about it. It's like, well, he hasn't been involved with the team since like 07 or whatever it is, but it's still sad. And, that's leadership, that's ownership, and that's a tough loss. And then same thing with Chris Stewart, same guy, the Eagles' first ever coach. And like he was at almost like every game. Like that guy was around the organization a lot. And, that one's kind of tough too, but obviously it's a retirement, and, I'm sure he'll still be around. He'll still be going to games and things like that. But it's quite the paradigm shift, like you said, and it's interesting times ahead. It's a lot of leadership lost in a very, very short amount of time. And I mean, if that's not just like, a perfect example of how this last year has gone, whether it's, 2020, 2021, it's like, of course all this shit's happening, but
right.
Tough for the Eagles, but they'll move on, and it's literally a new era now. So we'll see.
Yeah. And, I wrote an article for Full Press Hockey about it, and I didn't just want to regurgitate, what was said in, press releases and things like that. I actually wanted to include, some opinion and some, just kind of not an anecdote, but just a little backstory and kind of, see, words are failing me. Just an idea of how much these guys meant to the minor league hockey scene here in Colorado, because of the fact that Ralph Backstrom, he coached DU from 81 to 1990. So obviously he was plugged into Front Range Hockey, not the podcast, but unfortunately, but no, hockey along the Front Range here. He coached DU and the Pios for a number of years and got plugged in here. And he also played for the Denver Outlaws, I believe, in the WHA.
Couldn't tell you. Maybe.
I know he played for Denver, and it was their last season.
Yeah.
Neat little story. They actually got moved while they were on the road. So they became the Ottawa Civics while they were on the road in the WHA. It was just wild and crazy during those years. But anyway, I digress. Back to Backstrom. Like, he took a chance in 2002 and founded the Eagles to start play in 2003, 2004 up there in Northern Colorado. I did some research, and it was a pretty quick thing because I figured I remembered it correctly. But the only minor league hockey clubs up to that point have either played in the Denver metro area, aside one team. The Colorado Gold Kings from 1998 to 2002 played in Colorado Springs at the World Arena. Every other minor league hockey team has played in the Denver metro area. And now, come 2002, you have the Colorado Eagles up in Loveland in Northern Colorado, and Backstrom took a chance. He founded the organization, and Chris Stewart came in after coaching 3 seasons in the CHL with the San Antonio Iguanas, who have one of the most 90s-tastic jerseys ever. And he comes over from San Antonio, takes over the team, this expansion team, has an expansion season for the record books, and then continues to just kill it, and has, 4 not Governor's Cup, President's Cup. The Governor's Cup was their regular season trophy. He had 4 President's Cup appearances, won 2 trophies with the club, and was just such an integral part of the Eagles becoming such a powerhouse in the Central Hockey League that it opened the door in 2011 for them to graduate, as it were, even though it was considered a, kind of a parallel move at the time in AA hockey, but to graduate, as it were, to the ECHL before the CHL folded. And, the remaining teams were granted expansion franchises in 2014. It's like, and I kind of question that, like, hypothetically, do the Eagles move from the CHL to the ECHL had they not had that success under Stewart? And do they move to the AHL in 2018? Because they built on that. Eric Eric Schneekloth built on that. Aaron Schneekloth, rather. Sorry, Eric. I don't know where that came from. But Aaron Schneekloth, I know his name. Schneekloth took it, won back-to-back Kelly Cup championships. The general manager was Chris Stewart. So he built on that. Backstrom had the vision. Backstrom, created the team, and Stewart furthered that vision. And so it's like, it's kind of bittersweet. It's very bittersweet to look back and be like, well, damn, they're in the AHL now. They're going to start their season on Friday against San Diego. And it's like, holy shit. Like,
it's pretty incredible, man. Like,
yeah, it really is.
I guess like, I didn't like make that connection until you just started saying that, but I guess like, I'm going to give my like eulogy to Ralph Backstrom here for a few seconds and
do it.
Yeah. So I went to like the Eagles' first game, just as a Loveland kid, growing up in Loveland, didn't really like know anything about hockey, like was kind of getting into it, I guess, a little bit, but fell in love with the Eagles and they moved there. Seeing my first live hockey game was the Colorado Eagles like inaugural opener. I want to say against like the Tulsa Oilers, something like that, when they're in the CHL, and fell in love with the game. Started playing for the junior Eagles for a good majority of my life, and that wouldn't have been established had it not been for the Eagles. Obviously, got to go to like their camp and meet some players and do like a week-long like summer camp with the Eagles, and got like my first job, I guess, covering the Eagles for Mile High Hockey back in the day. And yeah, now that I like think about it, it's like, I mean, that's the reason why I'm here right now talking to you, like, covering the Avalanche and talking hockey is just the path that started at the inaugural, home opener game in 2003. And to your point, none of that would have been possible without Ralph Backstrom. So I guess posthumously, Ralph, like, thank you for all you did for the game in Colorado. Like, obviously, there was the Avalanche and they did their thing in the early to mid 90s. And that's awesome. But as far as Northern Colorado goes and that little community of Northern Colorado, Ralph built that. It's the, Budweiser Vintner is the house that Ralph built. And, Chris Stewart, of course, like did his thing too and helped grow it. But it never would have happened without Ralph Backstrom. And that's awesome. The Eagles hold the minor league record for most consecutive sellouts. And again, none of that would have been possible without Ralph Backstrom. And he made a lot of fans and grew a solid fan base in a small community of Northern Colorado that's now expanding into, what we know as the game of hockey on the Front Range. And he's a founding father, I guess. If you were to have a Mount Rushmore of Colorado athletics, like he's 100% on it, like no doubt about it. So it's a tough loss for the community, but he left a lasting legacy for sure. And it's going to continue growing, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And, just if I could story tell for a little bit too,
Go for it.
You went to the first Colorado Eagles game back in 2003. I think I've mentioned this before, but and forgive me if I have, cause I say it ad nauseum cause it's such a fun story to tell. I went to the first Utah Grizzlies game back in 1995.
Yeah.
Because the Grizzlies played in Denver their first season. They won the Turner Cup in the IHL, the International Hockey League. Then they moved to Utah the next season because the Avalanche came in and they took over the spot at McNichols Arena. So, to hear you tell your story and to have it come full circle where you have the Avalanche, the Eagles, and the Grizzlies all in one affiliation tree. Like and it took 20 years for the Grizzlies to become affiliated with the Avalanche. And now that they're affiliated with the Eagles after being bitter rivals in the ECHL, it's like, yeah, this is the culmination of everything. This is the culmination of, do the Grizzlies become involved with the Avalanche? Maybe eventually down the road, but like, yeah, the Eagles were kind of the catalyst for a lot of things. And so, yeah, it's a really neat story that both of us, like, our love of hockey. I grew up watching Colorado college hockey when I was, 6 or 7 years old, moved to Utah, started watching Grizzlies hockey. Both of our professional, hockey experiences, our first ones, was the first game of those respective clubs. And now, like you said, we have the dream of covering it. And so, yeah, I mean, just in a roundabout way, thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Backstrom. Thank you, Mr. Stewart, for everything you've done. And in a roundabout way, just everything that we get to do because of it. So It's a wonderful thing, and it's like I said, it's bittersweet to have a guy retire and to have a guy pass away in the same friggin' weekend. It's just so bizarre to me. I'm just writing it. I'm like, this is just weird stuff, man. Weird stuff. But
yeah, definitely like in a weird, like poetic way, I guess. Like it is kind of like a passing of the torch to a new generation. Just, climbing from the CHL, which is now like a defunct league, to the ECHL, and finding success at every level, and now the AHL, to being the direct affiliates to the National Hockey League. It's as good as it gets. That's it starts from the seed that Ralph Backstrom planted in Loveland, Colorado, back in 2002, and look what it's grown into. Like it's made friendships. You and I, like, we would have known each other had it not been for the Colorado Eagles. And I know our story is similar to a lot of other people. And like, I think anyone listening to this right now that's ever been to an Eagles game or whatever, and like high five a fan next to them or whatever, and maybe made a lifelong friendship with them or whatever it is, like it starts from somewhere, and that's somewhere it's Ralph Backstrom, and that's cool. It's super sad, but it's it's just like any funeral. Like it's sad, but it's a celebration of life, and you got to think of all the good stuff that came out of it, and nothing good lasts forever. That's just how it is. That's how life is, and you gotta live with those memories. Those last forever.
Yeah, and you can bet that during the home opener, the Eagles home opener on Wednesday, February 24th against Tucson. Again, had to check the calendar just to double check there. They want to get my facts straight.
Dates. It's all good.
Yeah, I know, right? And COVID has made time irrelevant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Time is not linear. It is now just a big circle. It just keeps happening every day. But real quick before we move on to the collegiate ranks, we did have some games. Holy crow, we did have some collegiate games played this past week. So we'll get into that here in a second. But first off, goaltender Kevin Carr has played with the Utah Grizzlies for the last 3 seasons, or at least 2 seasons, and the first part of this season. Kevin Carr signed a 2-way deal with the Eagles today, so he's got the potential to be bounced back and forth between Loveland and West Valley City, Utah, between the Eagles and the Grizzlies. And also the Eagles on February 10th bolstered their defensive core with this signing to a professional tryout of former Laval Rocket and Montreal Canadiens prospect Brett Lernout. So there's that.
He's a bad man too. I was looking at some of his highlights, like 6'4", like 215, 220, whatever he is, and he kicks ass. Like I immediately just YouTubed him, and all like the first top 4 or 5 hits or whatever, just like him fighting and like and dominating the fights too. So it goes back to our point that we talked about, like episode 1 or whatever it was, and we've touched on it a few times now. But the Eagles got big. Like they had a game plan, they had a strategy, and whether it's all the PTOs they're signing or guys they've actually signed to legitimate contracts, like they're getting mean and nasty, and the Eagles are going to be a fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, to hammer home the point, it's real nice to see that sandpaper and the grit guys come in after last season where you didn't have as many of those guys. So I know we've belabored that point too, but it bears repeating that to have those grit and sandpaper guys and to pick up another guy like Lernout, it's a good thing to see. And like you said, he's a bad man. I tell you. So, but anyway, so that's the Eagles. Like I said, their first game comes up this Friday against San Diego. They've got a 5-game road trip lined up in California, and then they head back to Loveland for their first home game, their home opener after their 2 games with Stockton got canceled because bye-bye. They went up to Canada. Eh?
They're not in Stockton. Yeah.
They're not in Stockton this year. They're the Stockton Heat, quote unquote. So there you go. But yeah, let's touch a little bit on collegiate hockey. So Denver had a couple of games on Friday and Saturday, February 5th and 6th, over there at Magnus Arena on the University of Denver campus. 3-1 victory on Friday, February 5th against Omaha, University of Nebraska, Omaha, UNO. And they lost 5-4 in overtime against Omaha on February 6th. That's Saturday. So that brings their record to overall 7-10-1 And I don't know where that places them in the NCHC
Couldn't
currently,
tell you.
but it's got to still be down there. I know they were 6th or 7th in this NCHC standings. We'll get to that here in a second, but they are currently in Grand Forks, North Dakota, don't you know, over there, and they're getting ready to face off against the Fighting Hawks. That's going to be tomorrow, Friday, February 12th. And Saturday, February 13th. I've got family in Bismarck, okay? So I can go into that. I can go into that accent pretty well. So, but
it was smooth. That was good.
Oh, thanks.
It was almost like it was natural. That's crazy.
Almost. Oh, that wasn't natural, but Oak Express is real oak furniture at real oak prices. Not sponsoring this podcast, by the way. Not yet. Yeah. But anyway, so you can catch both of those games on 104.3 The Fan on the radio, and you can catch the Saturday game on Altitude TV if you get it. We won't get into that, of course, but yeah, check out those games. And Colorado College, they don't have games. Well, they do have games. They've got Omaha this Friday and Saturday, just like Denver played them last weekend. Colorado College is going to be playing them this weekend in Omaha, Nebraska at Baxter Arena there. So you can catch those games on KRDO 105.5 and 92.5 FM or 1240 AM. You can catch both of those games on those channels. So there's that, KRDO. And I believe those are Colorado Springs radio stations, if my memory serves me correctly. It's been 20 years since I've lived there, but I think those are the Springs radio stations. But hey, you can also catch them online. Radio is easily pick-upable, if that's a word.
It is now. I like that.
Pick-upable.
Pick-upable. Okay. It
was like when I used the adjective Jostian to talk about Tyson Jost and things that apply to him. It was like something that the guys over at the Mile High Hockey or the Mile High Pundit podcast appreciated when I said Jostian. So I'm just a fount of wordsmithiness.
Okay, now we're getting a little off the rails.
I'm sorry.
We're stretching a little. Okay.
I'm bringing it back in. Let's talk Air Force Falcons hockey. So Air Force was slated to play RIT on Friday and Saturday, February 12th and 13th at the Cadet Ice Arena in Colorado Springs. But unfortunately, guess what? Name of the game this time of, not this time of year, but this era that we are living in history, it has been postponed due to Atlantic Hockey COVID-19 protocol, and no makeup date has been announced. Air Force's next series is scheduled for February 19th and 20th against Canisius at the Cadet Ice Arena. So that was announced on February 4th. So we'll take it from there, and we'll talk to you more about the rough Air Force hockey season that's occurring with one win. Oh, that's tough.
NCAA hockey in Colorado it's been tough. It's usually among the best states, like as far as that goes. Like, you have 2 to 3 pretty solid teams every single year, and like DU and Colorado College are among those, and it's been a strange one. It's unlike them, but it is what it is, I guess.
Everything is different in the upside down world of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. So yeah, buzzwords. You can throw them in there. So anyway, so there's the collegiate hockey. It's time for my favorite part of the show, and probably Scott's too.
Mine too.
Yeah, there you go. Asking the feed. Let's talk hockey with some of our followers on the social medias and the Twitters. First and foremost, we've got Michael Myers, Islander Mike, but instead of an S in Islander, you got a Z in there. So at Islander Mike, he says, I like Tays, but can't help and think about last year's Makar-Graves pairing, with Graves leading the league in plus minus. What do you think Graves needs to do to earn that spot back, and why he lost it? Or is it Tays' spot now versus being with Gerard, where their chemistry is solid? And, I was just going to bring that up. Chemistry is a huge thing. And even though, Graves led the league in plus minus, I mean, there's something to be said about, your top pairing guy and your young stud defenseman and Cale Makar. If it works, don't fix it. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. This is something I've been dealing with a lot on Twitter, like all season. Is just people. Graves is struggling. We all know that. Coach Bednar has said just as much. Like he's going through it. He's fighting it a little, as he says, quote unquote. And like we agree. I mean, you don't have to like be a hockey expert to just watch some of his game and just realize like he's not playing the same way he did last year. And like my excuse for him has been, the fact that you could put anybody. Like it could be a very, very average defenseman alongside Cale Makar, and Cale Makar is going to make you look a lot better than you are. And that's where the plus minus comes in. Like obviously the Makar line, like Makar is getting a lot of time with McKinnon, whether it's on the power play, things like that. And naturally, Makar is playing with Graves, so he kind of gets the added benefit of getting a plus. Anytime like he's on the ice with those guys, but. I don't like the fact that people are reading too much into the plus minus thing. It's not an impressive stat. The NHL used to award, they used to give out an award for, I think it was like a Bud Light plus minus award or something like that. And they stopped doing that in like the early 2000s because, excuse my French, no one gives a shit about plus minus. Like it's really not like that too big of an indicator of, a good play on ice. And yeah, I think Graves he was solid last year, obviously, and like he deserved that top line thing, but I think Makar and Taves are just as good, if not better, and they're a more mature duo than Graves is. So I get where Bednar is coming at with not wanting to split up Taves, and that actually might be a question I ask at the next press conference. Like I might ask. I don't think anyone's asked him that yet. Like if he's willing to put those two back together. But I just and again, it's kind of a situation if it ain't broke, don't fix it as far as Makar and Taves go, because they've been doing like really, really well. And you don't want to break those guys up. And Graves has kind of been struggling, and I don't think he deserves to be on the top line at this point. He needs to find his place. Bednar has sat down with him and told him like his roles changed a bit. I think he was playing like more offensive minded hockey last year. Obviously, just naturally playing with Makar, that's kind of how your game gravitates. But now he's playing with like EJ on like the PK, and he's a big bodied guy that serves better in front of the net, kind of pushing guys out of the way, and is a big body on the PK, is blocking a lot of shots, and that's Bednar said they've sat down multiple times and they've had discussions about that, how like his role has changed, and like I can tell you're frustrated about it, but it's just like it is what it is. We need you to kind of like conform to what we need you to be, and that's like you're a part of this team, and we need you to play on the PK. You're not going to be scoring all the highlight reel goals anymore or whatever, and that is what it is. We awarded you with a nice healthy contract extension this off season, and you're not earning that paycheck yet, so we need you to step it up. So I think we ride it out for a little bit longer. He's definitely gotten better, I think, as the season's gone on, and it's just kind of natural growing pains, I guess, that come with the territory of switching your roles from more of an offensive-minded, puck-moving defenseman to more of a shutdown PK kind of guy. So you're learning a new system, and you're learning a new style of play, and maybe he's not playing to his strengths yet, but I think he'll get there eventually. So we'll see. But I'll definitely ask that question, Michael. Next time I talk to Bednar, hopefully, and see if he's willing to put that back together or not.
Yeah, because, when you're playing a team sport, it sounds cliche. It is cliche, but it's still the truth, is that you have to be a team player and adjust when you need to. I don't know how much pull Jared Bednar has with GM Joe Sakic in regards to the personnel decisions he makes for the players on the ice, and in regards to acquiring Devin Taves. That's what I'm referencing there. So, obviously you have to work with the hand that you're dealt, and you have to put the players together, especially defensive pairings, that work the best. And so with Taves and Makar, it's definitely a step up from from Makar and Graves. So, it's just a matter of him. Like you said, he was awarded with a contract and wanted to keep him with the organization this year. And we'll get to the expansion draft, of course, as we always do in the questions.
Saw that.
But But yes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you can improve on something, then why not? So yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, all right, you got to tinker, but how much do you tinker? And obviously Taze and Makar work well. So yeah, go ahead, and I'm glad you're going to ask that question, because it's a curious thing, and it's an interesting.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what Coach Bednar says about that.
It's a good story idea, so I appreciate that, Michael.
Yeah,
That's
there you go.
I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna leverage that.
Perfect. We'll look out for that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Next question at Elevation Podcast, at Elevation Pod on Twitter. LOC, where does he fit in the lineup without injuries? Got to keep that kid in the lineup. And there was a response to that, which I wanted to share real quick. Garrett at Mr. Crotty, Crotty, said in response to at Elevation Podcast, I could be totally wrong, but I think the Avs' life continues without Calvert, which answers your question. I think LOC is the replacement to Calvert. I also think with Calvert being an unrestricted free agent this summer, Landy, Makar, and Grew all need new deals. To replace Calvert's salary with an ELC makes sense. We'll see what happens with Calvert's symptoms. So thoughts on that, Scott?
Yeah. Well, Garrett, I guess, kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but I mean, first of all, shout out to Adrian Hernandez at Elevation Podcast. We started that together over at Mile High, and he's been doing good things with it. So shout out to Adrian. But to answer the question, yeah, I mean, I think he probably knows where I stand with OC Logan O'Connor. He's my favorite. I mean, he's an incredible guy that fits very, very well on this team, and I think people are now like finally starting to see that. As you know, he's only played a couple games this year, and like obviously a few games last year. I think like all in all, like less than 10 games in the NHL, and he's done very, very well in his performances. And yeah, I think Garrett, what I was saying, he stole my thunder a little bit, is I guess next season. So he signed a 2-year deal this offseason. It was this season right now is a 2-way deal. So it's an AHL NHL contract, but the second year, so next season, it's a full blown one year or 1-way NHL deal. So I think looking down the barrel into the future, I think OC has always been Calvert's replacement. I think that's kind of the intention of signing the way they structured this deal, 2-way this year, 1-way next year. I think he's going to be Belmar's or Calvert's replacement, so he's going to be a full-time guy. But I think what he's asking there, Adrian, is about this season. And I think I agree with you. You got to keep the kid in the lineup. I think he's more than earned that spot. I've been saying you got to keep the kid in the lineup since last season. I think he deserves a spot. He plays exactly like Matt Calvert, same kind of engine of the team, wears his heart on his sleeve or whatever. He's an all heart, like nose to the net kind of guy. And it's relentless. And Colorado Eagles head coach Greg Cronin used that adjective a lot when last season and this season, even like his media availability held, I guess a couple of weeks ago now at this point, is just like one word to describe Logan O'Connor is relentless. And I think that's what you need in a fourth line guy. You need that kind of motor and a guy who's, willing to, I guess, go tough at pucks in the corner, willing to take that hit, willing to hit other guys. And O'Connor's that guy. And he's a cheap guy to Mr. Crotty's point, to Garrett's point. He's a cheap contract, which I think, Joe Sakic loves and everyone loves. And I would argue at this point, maybe an upgrade from the Calverts and the Belmars as far as just what he brings to this team and, the youthful direction that they're trying to go. So I think this year, I think he deserves to stay in the lineup. Calvert's going to be, out for some time, I think, dealing with that concussion issue. So I think he's probably going to stay in the lineup. I think if you have to pick between, Kiefer Sherwood and Logan O'Connor staying up or going to the taxi squad when Belmar comes back, which it sounds like he's coming back soon, I think you got to pick O'Connor. And that's what I pick. And I think that's what they will pick, just based on what Bednar said the past couple of weeks about O'Connor. It sounds like he's staying. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah. And, as much as Kiefer Sherwood has impressed and, continues to, earn that spot in spite of injuries and COVID-19 protocols and everything. Yeah. Logan O'Connor definitely is in the running as well. So it's for me, it's kind of neck and neck. That would be a rough decision for me to make personally, but Logan O'Connor, he's been with the organization and the guys know where to plug him in. So there's that. But next question. Thank you guys for that question. Moving on to the next one. Aaron at Avs FTW, Avs for the win. Overview of who is exempt for the Avs on the expansion draft and predictions on who they will protect. Aaron, have you been listening to the podcast? We talk about this every episode. You got to listen in, man. Come on. I'm looking at you. I'm looking right down the barrel of the camera at you. Anyway.
We'll get one next week too, man. Don't worry about it.
Probably. I'm good. It's just a number of episodes in the row. I had to let off some steam, as it were. So, Scott, take it away.
Death, taxes, expansion draft questions. That is life on the Front Range Hockey podcast. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So my answer still has not changed as far as I guess who's exempt. I think it's Ryan Graves, Tyson Jost, and I think JT Compher, and the outside chance that they ask Eric Johnson to waive his no trade clause and maybe offer Seattle a package deal to take that contract off their hands. I think that's the most likely scenario. But he asked it kind of in a different way, I guess. Who will they protect? Okay, so I actually took some notes on this. So
didn't you answer this last episode too?
I did, but I kind of didn't really answer it. So I actually prepared this time because I couldn't just memorize the roster on demand. So there's two options for expansion draft protection. So it's 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie, or a total of 8 forwards and defensemen. So it could be 5 forwards, whatever, and also a goalie. So the first option you get to protect, I guess, 11 guys versus the second option, 4 guys, but you get to keep more, defensemen if you want to on the second option. So it's kind of a tough call, but I think when you look at it, if they expose, a guy like Eric Johnson, ask him to waive his no trade clause, which I think they will. I think they take the 7 forward, 3 defenseman route. And I mean, the forwards are pretty easy. It's going to be your top 3. McKinnon, clearly, Rantanen, obviously. Landeskog, I think they keep Burakovsky and Kadri, and man, who else? Maybe Donskoy too. He's on a pretty friendly contract, but defensemen are easy too. Cale Makar, I think Devon Taves and Sam Girard are going to be your protected guys, and they got a tough choice on goalie, I think. So if they decide to re-sign Grubauer, who, I think if he keeps playing the way he's playing now, I think they absolutely will. But, heading into the season, I wasn't sure if they were going to. So my pick was always Francouz as a cheap, backup guy, and that would give them the chance to kind of, go after a big-name goaltending free agent this offseason. But, Grubauer is playing lights out so far, so I think they try to re-sign him and protect him as the starting goalie moving forward. But that's what I got for you. I think to answer this question, I think the most likely scenario is they ask Eric Johnson to waive his no trade clause and they offer Seattle, some sort of deal, some picks, maybe some salary cap retention or whatever it might be to take Eric Johnson off their hands. I think that's probably what's going to happen. That's my prediction.
See, you've got this down. You've had to go through this a number of times. So you've had to do a little more research, get your story down, get it straight. And it is open to change. You've done it in pencil. You can go back and erase if you need to. But yeah, you've pretty well stuck to your guns the last few times you've asked this question, and you've, nurtured it and grown it. And it's now this whole just well thought out spiel that you have ready at the ready. I'm gonna
start just writing, typing it out. Okay, so next week when we get the question, I'm just gonna open up my Word doc and just read it word for word, and just make sure consistency is key. You texted me that earlier, and that's a fact of life. So
it's very true.
I'm trying to stay consistent with it.
There you go. Yeah, that's we're doing our best to record on Thursday, put it out on Friday. So consistency is key, even in the podcast world. So, all right, well, we'll do the express round here. We're kind of reaching the hour point, and I want to kind of wrap it up here. So we'll take a couple more questions. David Nola at David Nola 985. Can you give us a few guys to watch for on the Colorado Eagles this season? I'm interested to see Bowers, Vecchione, Nick Henry, Sasha Mutala, Jean-Luc Foudy. Will he be in the AHL the entire year, or just temporary while his junior league isn't playing? Also, in all caps, Keaton Middleton. And I'll take this first.
So I will let you take that one.
Thank you. So I think I mentioned it on the last episode that a couple of the Eagles guys that I'm looking forward to are rookies. So Ian Scheid on the defensive side of the puck, the blue liner, I'm really looking forward to him and what he can bring to the power play, since he was kind of the power play quarterback in college. So after speaking with his coach and everything in the offseason, I'm really looking forward to see what he produces and what he contributes to the Eagles this offseason. And of course, Peyton Jones, the Penn State product and net. Really excited to see, his brother was, second round MLB draft pick. So athleticism just runs in the family. And his coach, Guy Godowski over at Penn State, talked with him in the offseason. And he said, yes, Peyton Jones is an athlete and he is a smart kid. He went all 4 years to Penn State, made it a point to graduate college. And he's also got that hockey IQ in net as well. He's calm. He's collected when he communicates with guys, whether it's a high pressure situation or not, he can relay his points very well. So those are my two guys, is Ian Scheid, Peyton Jones. And yeah, if the CHL starts back up, you can definitely say goodbye to Sasha Mutala, Jean-Luc Foudy, and Burzan as well, Lucas Burzan. So yeah, you can say goodbye to those guys as well. But real quick, Scott, any Eagles that you're excited to see this year?
Always Shane Bowers. He's been a fun guy to talk to in the past, obviously a fun guy to watch. And I think, a lot of people are excited about what he brings. And that was the biggest question when the Avs are going through all these injuries that they've been going through for the past month or so. Is when is Shane Bowers going to get the call up and get his NHL debut? Because fun fact, he's the only 2017 first round draft pick who has not played a single NHL game. I think before this pause happened, and those first COVID cases started rolling out, I think it was Tyson Jost was the first. I thought for sure, I was like, if the Avs continue to play, before they're shut down, I think Shane Bowers is going to get the call up for Tyson Jost, for Tyson Jost. But obviously that didn't happen, and now he's probably going to be stuck in the Eagles for a while longer. But yeah, excited to see what he brings, because he's been in the league for a couple of years now, and he's probably hitting his stride. And he's a guy that Bednar said impressed him a lot in this past training camp, a month or so back. So excited to see what he brings. And then I think Foudy as well and Mutala as two guys who, shouldn't be playing in the AHL this year, but are because of the situations in their other leagues. So we'll see. Cronin said that those are two guys that really stood out the first week of practices. So they're obviously, hungry young kids that are, quick on their feet, as every Avs draft pick has been for the past, few years. And I'm excited to see what they could do, against some 20 to 25 to 30-year-olds in the AHL.
Yep, the young kids against the grown-ass men, as we've said many times in the season previews that we're recording for the Calder Farmstead. So, yep, gotta love it. Gotta love the Canadian Hockey League kids getting a chance in the AHL, especially this year. So, yep. All right, last question. It's from Brandon Eccles at B Eccles. That's ECCLES 2007 on the Twitters. Are there any rumblings about a trade for a solid veteran backup goaltender with Frankie out for what seems like a long time? I haven't heard anything. Have you, Scott?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything. I've gotten this question a lot too on my Twitter.
Sure.
I think, it's obviously Frankie's, long-term injured reserve, which, indicates he's going to be at least out for 10 plus days, which again, added benefit, silver lining of the Avs being off for the last 10 days is, the fact that Frankie's got to rest up a little bit off the ice. And last I heard from him before this break happened, he has not even touched an ice surface since he left. So he's only been, working out lightly off the ice. So it probably is, kind of a pretty big long-term kind of injury. But I think they really do trust in Hunter Miska, and they want to give him a few more starts. And I think he's looked solid in his 2 starts, and the games he's played so far, he hasn't won them obviously, but I don't think they've been his fault necessarily. And he's kind of stood on his head to make some crazy saves, as we've seen a lot in Eagles country with the Eagles. And now the NHL crowd is kind of seeing a little bit too. Like the guy can play goalie. And I found out from his wife actually that he didn't start playing goalie until his freshman year of high school. Like he played forward his entire life, and just decided when he was going to high school in Minnesota that he was going to try out goalie. And I think he might have ended up like winning a state championship or something. And he's good. He's a natural athlete, obviously, and I'd like to see, and I think Bednar and Sakic would like to see too. Just let's give him 4, 5, 6 starts and see if this guy can continue to play the way he is playing. Because if he does, and the Avs continue to get healthy, I have no problem with Hunter Miska playing backup and saving some of those assets, and not necessarily pulling the trigger on a veteran NHL goalie like trade or whatever it is. So I think they'll give it some time and let Miska play a little bit. And I haven't heard anything about any trade rumors, so we'll see what happens. But Joe Sakic's a quiet guy, and he tends to surprise people. So if we wake up tomorrow, or just the way it's been happening for us recently, I'm sure I'll probably get a notification from Data or somebody that that trade's been made. But yeah, I haven't heard anything. We'll see what happens. I don't expect anything happening anytime soon.
Yeah, and you don't want to mortgage, the future for the fact that, or even, your success of your AHL team just for a quick fix while, Francouz is, on the mend. So to rely on your goaltending depth and to bring Miska in and to rest, to have that, Frankie says relax. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. But anyway, so that is pretty much it. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little distracted here. That's pretty much it. But yeah, I wouldn't go mortgage, sell the farm in regards to, an injury that's, that could resolve itself in the next, month or so. We'll see. Like you said, Sakic's a quiet guy, and if he does trade for a goaltender, he's probably going to fleece the competition. So as we know,
as he does,
as he does. But anyway, that's the end of the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to Front Range Hockey. Don't forget to follow our show on pretty well any major podcast platform. That includes Google, Apple, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, etc. Spotify. Go check us out on Spotify. I know I listen to Spotify a lot. Please give our Twitter account a follow. As you can see, our handle scrolling below there, at Front Range Hockey. So yeah, check that out as well if you're not following us already. Scott, where can the people find your work and interact with you?
Boom! I'm getting so good at this. Boom, right there. If you're watching the video podcast, at Off Scott Free, that's 0FF Scott Free on Twitter. I'm there every day, annoyingly tweeting. Other than that, you can find my more detailed work on ColoradoHockeyNow.com, working alongside Adrian Dater. Hopefully, you guys can follow along with my coverage at Lake Tahoe. I'll be flying out there if Vegas doesn't screw it up for me. We'll see. But yeah, check me out there. And once again, I'm CC Hawkley. You can find my written work at Full Press Hockey. That's www.fullpresshockey.com. Check this out and a ton of other great hockey podcasts and other great sports pods on the Full Press Radio Network at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Don't forget the dot. Yeah, www. So thank you guys once again for listening. And to all the guys, gals, and non-binary pals out there, stay colorful, my friends, and we will catch you next time. Adios. Bye.